The Hunter has finally been released in World 0. This is the mastery class of the Spirit Archer and is obtained by defeating 200 dungeon bosses over level 100. The fastest way to complete this is to complete 9-2 Aether Fortress on normal mode 200 times. Going over the Hunter's kit, the Hunter's arrows have the same attack animation as the Spirit Archer and deal the same amount of damage. The E, Blazing Shot, fires a fiery arrow leaving a puddle of fire to deal AoE damage. The R ability is quite interesting because this skill allows you to tame any mob that has a paw icon above it. You do this by defeating the enemy before the bar runs out. The R then turns into the Summon Familiar, and when your pet is out, you can empower it to deal 30% more damage. The F, Venom Trap, places a trap at your feet when triggered. This deals Venom status effect similar to the Poison status effect. The trap also functions as crowd control similar to the Black Hole skill. X, Divine Arrow, fires off a holy arrow which deals pulsing AoE damage and heals your pet and yourself. But is it any good? And because the Hunter is the mastery class to the Spirit Archer, I am comparing the numbers to the Spirit Archer for the baseline. The Archer's arrow does 2631 auto attack damage. The E, Piercing Arrow, deals 112534 damage on hit, and it hits 5 enemies. The Piercing Arrow also increases damage to the enemy for 30% for 5 seconds, but this only works against mobs. The R, Spirit Bomb, deals 150,045 AoE damage on a 10-second CD. The F, Mortar Strike, hits enemies 8 times. The ult, Paracostal Wings, launches 6 swords when fully charged, and these do a very large amount of damage. Heading into the damage comparisons between the Spirit Archer and the Hunter here, I use the exact same gear on both classes, and I try and do the dungeon as fast as possible on both classes. For this first boss here, you can really see the problem with the Hunter. The ultimate takes too long to charge up. The Spirit Archer uses the ultimate on the left, and I have the ultimate back, but the Hunter does not have the ultimate at all up until this point in the dungeon, meaning that the Hunter doesn't deal as much damage as the Spirit Archer, even though it has stronger single target damage. For the next pack here, you can really kind of see the shortcoming of the Hunter's AoE. Spirit Archer on the left has way more AoE and finishes the pack faster than the Hunter. For the final boss here, once again, the Spirit Archer gets the ultimate back twice in this fight, and the Hunter only gets to use the ultimate once. I think the ultimate needs to either be buffed and damaged, or it needs to be recharging faster to compensate for the low damage. As you can see, the damage is pretty similar for a single target, and so skipping to the end, the Spirit Archer finishes the dungeon 1 second faster. For the next dungeon here, this is what the AoE kind of looks like on both classes. Now on the right side, I summoned the Familiar a little late, so it's a little bit slower, but it still doesn't change the fact that the AoE is just weaker on the Hunter. For the mini boss here, pay attention to the ultimates of each class. I use the Spirit Archer's ultimate here, and I get 5 charges back right away. It's almost instant. And on the Hunter, it just doesn't happen. The Hunter's ultimate takes too long to charge back, and it just means it's less consistent damage overall. Skipping to the final boss here, the Spirit Archer has the ultimate back and the Hunter doesn't. But the Hunter, I want to talk about something else. The Hunter is meant to be the first mastery class players obtain, and so because of this, it's meant to be significantly weaker than the Mage of Shadows and the Necromancer because those classes are harder to obtain. This doesn't change the fact that the Hunter is, I think, weaker than the Spirit Archer. Based off my clear times, the Hunter is significantly weaker than the Spirit Archer and significantly slower. I think the Hunter should be looked at and redesigned to function similarly to the Spirit Archer. The Hunter should be what the base class is and more. The Mage of Shadows is what the Mage of Light is with the orbs and more. The Necromancer does more than the Demon class. The Hunter is just a weaker kit than the Spirit Archer with a pet. I feel like that's a very big missed opportunity here. But skipping ahead to the clear times, the Spirit Archer finished the dungeon a little bit faster than the Hunter. The Hunter is going to be tuned numerically, but I think ignoring numbers, the Hunter is just not fun to play. I feel like the Hunter should do what the Spirit Archer does and more. I feel like the Blazing Arrow should debuff mobs' defense like the Spirit Archer's Piercing Arrow, and it should also ricochet like the Spirit Archer's piercing arrow, in addition to burning effect. I feel like the F ability was a really big missed opportunity. I feel like the F ability should function like how the Spirit Bomb used to work. The Spirit Bomb used to crowd control mobs, and I feel like this Hunter should have that crowd control ranged ability in addition to the Venomous buff, but instead it's not. It's just a thing you place at the ground. I think it's a really big missed opportunity and a big contributor on why the Hunter is clunky to play. Finally, I think the ultimate of the Hunter is just bad. I feel like healing in World 0 is kind of pointless. For example, in Infinite Tower, past floor 300, taking any damage will instantly one-shot you, meaning you can't heal the damage anyways. I think part of the difficulty in World 0 is learning to avoid taking damage and avoiding all mechanics. That's part of the fun. Also, I think the healing is kind of useless because if your pet does die, you can just resummon it. There's no point in healing your pet. It's kind of pointless. I think the Hunter's ultimate should have functioned similarly to what was teased in the Frenzy ability, like the Shadow Blade or the Mage's Shadows. But skipping to the end times, once again, the Spirit Archer is a bit faster than the Hunter. Do I think the Hunter is worth unlocking? Hell no! The Hunter is meant to be one of the weaker mastery classes because it's meant to be unlocked earlier than the other mastery classes with the Spirit Archer. However, this class is worse than the Spirit Archer. It's almost like the Spirit Archer is the mastery class of the Hunter. The Hunter is going to be adjusted numerically to deal more damage than the Spirit Archer, but this doesn't change that the class just feels clunky to use. Despite my last video, I do enjoy playing World 0 and I am in a top 10 guild and play this game for an unhealthy amount of time, but I don't think the Hunter is fun to play. All of your animations lock you in place for far too long, and the class just isn't my type of Hunter class fantasy. Thematically, what about a Hunter is supposed to shoot a divine arrow? Is this the Hunter of Light Paladin class? I feel like removing the frenzied mode in Hunter's Mark from the initial design are huge misses. This class could have been insane if it had the utility to reduce enemy defense. And if frenzied mode just played similarly to the Shadow Blade or Mage's Shadows ultimate, that would have been way more fun than a divine arrow. I don't think the damage output is the primary issue. I think the class just doesn't make much sense. And it's really unfortunate because this class was delayed by 3 weeks. If you just took the Spirit Archer kit and slapped on the Familiar, I think it would have been a better mastery class than what we got. That's all I got for today. I'm going to go try and reach floor 500 of Infinite Tower because the Mage's Shadows is getting nerfed. And after the nerfs, I know it's going to be significantly harder or impossible to get back to floor 500.